So last month, I got promoted as a software engineer at Google. So in this video, I wanted to give you guys all my tips and tricks that I use to get promoted in the hope that you guys can use these tips to also get promoted as a software engineer as well. Make sure you guys stay till the end of the video because I'm going to share a couple extra bonus tips that I use to try and make sure that my promotion went as smoothly as possible. And I think it'll be really, really helpful for all of you. Okay, so in general, when you're going up for promotion or when you're trying to get promoted at any company, basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to convince your company that you're able to perform at whatever the next level is that you would be moving to. So effectively, when a company is trying to decide whether or not they should or should not promote you, they're basically trying to look at empirical evidence as to whether or not you can successfully perform at the next level. And so oftentimes, this is really going to be determined by a couple different factors. The first thing it's going to be determined by is basically any evidence that you can show that actually equates to that next level that you're trying to move to. And then the second thing I'd say that is taken as evidence is typically other people's opinions and recommendations as to whether or not you can actually perform successfully at that next level. So I want to preface this with the fact that I think that any time that promotions tend to fail, it really boils down to a couple different reasons. And I want to say these things because I want you guys to avoid these pitfalls. I think the first reason why people fail promotions is because of a lack of communication. The next reason why I think people commonly fail at getting promotions is because of lack of opportunities. And the third and final reason is simply just because of a lack of execution. So I want to sort of walk through these different things and make sure that you actually have them on your side and they're not going to be pitfalls for you. So first, let's start with communication. So communication, especially for promotion, I think really starts with your manager. I think your manager is going to be the person who's going up to bat for you and trying to defend why you should hopefully be promoted to a committee or to a group of other people, or at the very least collecting evidence and artifacts as to hopefully why you should be promoted. If you do want to go for a promotion at some point in the future, try and make that timeline really, really clear. So for me, for example, after joining Google, I really told my manager and made sure that she knew that it was my goal to get promoted at Google after having been there for about a full year. And once I clearly told my manager about this, we could sort of work backwards and actually talk about the things that I need to do and accomplish over the next year to actually effectively make a case for my promotion, hopefully get promoted, which is ultimately successful. And I think it's important to remember here that your manager is technically responsible for your career, or at least helping you develop your career, but no one is going to develop your career or care as much as you. So I really encourage you guys to take the wheel and be your own driver of your career and go to your manager and be proactive about what you want out of your career and how they can actually help you get there. I also think it's really important to try and communicate with other key people on your team to make sure that they're aware that you're trying to go for promotion along with your timeline, because then they can help you. So for me, I found it really helpful too to tell other TLs and leads on my team, hey, I'm trying to go for promotion. This is the kind of scope that I'm looking for, because then it made them aware of my goal. And my TLs and leads are really, really helpful to give me advice on how I can get promoted to the next level, as well as things that I could take on and tackle for the team, or projects that they could carve out for me so that I can, have very good substantial evidence and multiple pieces of evidence that I'm actually performing at the next level. Now that people know your goal as well as your timeline of getting promoted, you really want to try and actually identify opportunities that are going to tee you up really, really well to get promoted. Ideally, the goal is that basically whenever promotion time comes and you make your packet or your case to a committee or to a person who's going to decide your promotion, hopefully it's a no-brainer. Hopefully you're able to, list tons of things A through Z that you've done over the past year, 2 years, whatever your tenure is at your level, to say, here's why Kevin or you should absolutely be promoted. Here's all the different reasons. Here's all the check boxes that they check. And really, we should promote this person to the next level. So again, you really need to be strategic about the work that you take on. You try and want to make sure that the work that you're going to take on and prioritize is work that's going to look good for your promotion. And also, I think it's important to actually talk to other people and not just assume that your assumption about the level of work is a correct judgment. And so if you don't understand what I mean by that, what I'm trying to say is that if you're considering taking on a project and you think that that meets the requirements of the next level, I'd probably run that by a couple of people who you trust just to make sure that they agree and that that is the case. Because it would be a real shame if you actually ended up taking on that project thinking that it was actually a good candidate for next level work, and it turned out once you delivered the project, it actually wasn't. I think it's also worth mentioning here that in some instances, the team that you're on, for some reason, one way or another, might not actually have projects and scope large enough to move to the next level. And so I think that's where you actually need to start getting creative about how you can get promoted. And I think one of the simplest ways is to actually just move teams in some instances, and that's sort of a big, maybe drastic step, but that's something that you could decide for yourself. If there's not actually projects big enough to get you from one level to the next level, it might be worth branching out and looking at other products within the company to see if those projects that they would have on their team could actually look really good for a promotion to the next level. I think another thing that you could do that's probably a better thing to do before you decide to leave your team is just think outside the box a little bit. And I think as you go up in level, this is something that's going to be more and more important, but you sort of coming up with projects and driving projects on your team. So let's say your team is owning 5 different projects and those are all allocated to different engineers, and you don't want to sort of steal their scope, obviously. What you could do then is sort of brainstorm about the product that your team owns and come up with a project and think about how you would improve the product that you guys work on, and then, design how that solution would work or different solutions to that problem, and then try and get that work prioritized so that you're actually coming up from scratch with your own ideas for a project that would be of next level scope. Now comes the fun part, or maybe I guess the most straightforward part. Once you've actually identified the things that you need to do to actually demonstrate next level scope or next level impact, then you just need to simply do those things or execute what you said you're going to do. And so this is extremely important, obviously, because nothing in the previous 2 steps means anything if you sort of fall flat on your face here. And so it's really important to actually make sure that you're making good progress on those projects, that you're checking in, getting help where you need if you're blocked or you're having trouble, and ultimately that you're setting clear expectations and deadlines as to when you're actually going to deliver those things. So one thing that I think you could do here to try and help yourself is just try and make sure that you're always working on the highest priority task at any given time. I think in engineering, it's really easy to get sidetracked with lower priority tasks like emails, messages, meetings, design reviews, and things of that nature, as opposed to typically what is just you writing code or pushing code. So I would really recommend that you try and protect your time as much as possible. So for example, try and decline meetings you're not actually required in. Try and make sure that you're giving yourself very focused time by maybe blocking your calendar. And then I also recommend sort of trying to batch some of those smaller things together. So maybe you only check your emails and respond to messages a few times throughout the day at set times to make sure that you're not really context switching too much throughout the day, and you could stay really, really focused on what you actually need to get done to advance your career. I think another good way to make sure that you just sort of streamline your execution is for things that you're planning on delivering, make sure that you actually have all the stakeholders and senior people on your team aligned on the path forward. So if there's 3 different solutions to solve a specific problem, make sure you've already outlined why A is the best solution and B and C have been considered, but they're not the right path forward. Because otherwise, I think it's really easy to have sort of like engineering churn and going back and forth and sort of thrashing between coding a solution and delivering a solution, and sort of going back and forth between considering the other options that you might have had. So now, as promised, 3 quick tips that I actually used to make sure that my promotion at Google went as smoothly as possible. The first thing I did, I think pretty well, is just building strong relationships. Like I mentioned previously, it's really important to actually have other people aside from yourself, like your manager, TLs, or maybe even outside your team, be able to advocate for your work and your ability to perform at the next level when it comes to promotion time. So really make sure that you spend time forging strong relationships with your coworkers and other people outside your team, because they're super, super important. Another thing I think is really important is to sort of just publicize your work and talk about what you're working on and why it really matters. Because I think a lot of times people are very siloed into the work that they're doing. So if you tell people what you're doing and why it's important, I think other people will start understanding the impact that you have on the team, which again is important when it comes time to things like promotions. The final thing that I think is really important to do is actually create artifacts. And as you're getting things done and as you're doing things, whether it's writing documentation, design docs, leaving comments on people's code changes, whatever it may be, I think having those documents to actually show people, here's all this stuff that I did while I was at this specific level, it's really, really important, and it's really helpful when it comes time to make a decision for a committee or a specific person on your promotion. So guys, those are the things I think actually ended up leading to a successful promotion for me. If you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, do me a favor, drop the video a like, subscribe to the channel for more, and I'll see you guys next time.